Theoretical capitalism. That's the topic.
Nah, the real topic is the weather patterns in North America, right? This weather sure is making me blue, and I hear a lot of people are red in the face about it.
Maybe we should go to a college to see what is happening.
I like that. There we go. We've summed up. Let's just talk about this entire thing, but through analogies. Let's never mention what we're actually talking about. That's my idea.
Yes, that actually works. Okay.
I don't know
So,
if it does. I think this is actually a terrible idea. I want to be on record. I thought you'd disagree. I thought you'd tell me we'd have to stop. How about we just have a normal intro, like how podcasts and YouTube videos do? Like, yo, 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 what's up, guys? It's your boy Toy Cat with Van de Graaff here to talk about geography again. I hear there's an event happening in America. What's that event, huh?
it's electoral in nature.
It is electoral. And I hear that if you go to college, you'll understand it the best. I swing back and forth on whether I think it's a good idea to talk about it. But then I realize that I'm in a state of well-being. I've got a funny joke for you.
Okay, what is it?
So if pro is the opposite of con, what is the opposite of Congress?
The Senate.
You ruined my hilarious joke that boomers tell on the internet.
It's not called Congress, it's called the House of Representatives. So the joke doesn't even work.
Is Congress the building that contains both the House of Representatives and the Senate, though, right?
Yes, the Congress is both of those things, I believe. I might be wrong about that. I might be wrong about my wrongness.
Yeah, I guess we're used to like our system where the two houses are like very separate, but there they have a building or something in common.
Yeah,
I don't.
there's
That's not even the same building, actually.
yeah, in Canada, one of the rooms is green and the other's red. And guess which one is the Senate?
If it's based on the UK system, red would be the Senate.
Yep, we based our system right on yours. We even created a Senate for your House of Lords, but we didn't have any lords, so we named it after the one America
Yeah.
has.
I mean, I'm sure Canada does have lords. You just didn't want to use them, right?
We used to name our prime ministers all sirs, but then we stopped for some reason.
Oh, probably when you had that female prime minister.
No, that was well, it was before that.
Oh, okay. Isn't it hilarious that Canada's had one female prime minister and she's widely recognized as not only the worst, but maybe the shortest serving too?
It was basically like nobody wanted to be the leader. So, because the party was I honestly don't know what they did wrong. To this day, I do not understand why they somehow collapsed to 2 seats after that happened. I do not get it.
Oh, I watched the whole video just because it's she's I've checked it to confirm. She served 132 days in office, so
Like like the
that's impressive,
reason
right?
like the reason that the party she got to be the leader of collapsed was because some sort of accords, the Meech Lake Accords with trying to figure out how to make Quebec want to stay in Canada didn't exactly work. But then and then later we had the referendum where they skirted by with like 49 point like something percent wanted to leave, and so they almost left. But anyway, in between that, we had our first female prime minister when the party that failed to get Quebec to want to stay ended up losing everything.
Yeah, it wasn't even like oh yeah, they lost kind of badly. They went from 156 seats to 2 seats is what I'm reading here. That's uh that's pretty bad. That's what they call not good where I'm from. And then it took like a decade for the Conservatives to recover, right? And the Conservatives split again. It's interesting in Canada, it's the Conservatives that split way more than the right.
Well, currently we have a united Conservative Party. So,
But they did just split the last election. It's just the split didn't go well for the splitting faction, right?
oh yeah, I forgot about that, which is kind of yeah.
See, that's interesting because the idea is like, what if conservatives but French? What if I guess what's the word? Quebecois, but didn't go well, huh?
No,
How
it
you feeling
didn't.
about your vote? You wished you vote for the Green or the New Democratic or the Bloc Quebecois.
I don't want to reveal my vote in the episode.
Aw,
It's
I
like
know.
because like I don't know, like the 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 milk cartels will get me.
Cocktails.
The milk cartels will get me if I reveal my vote.
Oh yeah, I remember my a guy I met in Nova Scotia told me that the only party against the milk monopoly was the People's, right?
Yeah.
Pretty
We also
wild.
don't even have free trade between provinces.
Yeah. Wait, am I right in thinking that you can't travel freely between them right now?
No, yes, you can travel. It's just that we don't have free trade between provinces. We actually have interprovincial trade wars, which is messed up, and that's one of the things that party wanted to fix.
I think that's wild enough, like because milk prices vary and all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a lot of things you can't take across province lines. But the thing that like really nails the thing in the coffin to me is that right now you are limited. I don't know which provinces are limiting interprovincial travel, but like if you're one country, you should be one country, not one country except when it's convenient not.
Well, that's just what Canada is.
That is true. That is true. You know, if Canada became an American state, would it be one state or 10?
It would have to be 10 because none of the provinces will sign up if they stop being provinces because the constitutional changes are a thing. We can't even agree on that. So nobody will ever agree to become part of the United States if they don't get to continue existing.
I mean, what if it's like because America goes down to like the county level and the city? What if the 10 provinces become counties and then they can keep their laws, they can keep their taxes, their milk monopolies or whatever, but also they become part of the Canadian state.
No, because that
'Cause
would be the worst state though. It would be the least integrated state in the United States.
I would like to beg to differ. I went to Hawaii a few days ago. Hawaii pretends to be America so hard, but it's just not. It's just not America.
No, 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 no,
No.
no. We'd be very integrated to the other states. It's just that this Canada state would not be integrated with itself.
Oh, with itself. Yeah. I mean, it'd be the biggest state. I mean, like Alaska is
Like
like there's one road across Alaska, and it's like, and that's kind of
Western
it.
Canada.
Oh yeah, it's exactly the same. Oh damn.
Alaska is to Canada as Canada is to the United States because
Yeah,
we have trains. We have like the Canadian trains, the Canadian Pacific trains, and they go through the United States.
that's true. That's true. We're making the compelling case again as to why Alaska should be Canada and not America. Like, not only would it look good on a map, it would be geographically much more logical, but also they fit. They both got the same problem where like you're so big that you can't physically be that integrated with each other. Alaska should be a province. I've decided. It has been locked down
We have
when we
to
become presidents.
we have to manifest our destiny to capture our hat.
I mean, it's more like it's the hat is falling off the head pretty fast if that's your hat.
No,
I hate to break
we're cool, so we wear it sideways.
it. That's just wearing it off one of your ears, though. That's not even how that works. But yeah, when we become presidents, that's the thing. However, if we were to become president, do you know what we would need to do?
We would need to win
And
elections.
exactly. Also, we'd need to be born in America, which neither of us were, so sad. But also, we'd need to run in an election. Wow, it just turns out one of those elections is happening next. Oh, it's happening like as soon as this goes up, huh?
Yeah. So let's immediately start off with predictions. My prediction is that at any
Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen wins, landslide.
well, I was gonna say Jeb Bush, but my prediction is that for all future elections, the incumbent is more likely to win than the challenger. And this will be true for all elections. It is not specific to any one particular election. But that's the only prediction I'm going to make because it's a prediction that I will continue to make forever because it is
Okay, so
statistically the most likely to happen.
Okay, yeah, you're right that more presidents win re-election than don't, and I agree. I guess I agree with that, but the more strong thing to me, like already, if you look at the safe states for both parties, blue has a lead, and the lead in just the safe, guaranteed, like, oh, California's totally going to vote red, Hawaii's totally going to vote red. Like the lead that a state that each party has is going to favor blue more and more and more because demographics are switching that way. The fact that Texas has gone from like, oh, I'm from the South, I vote with my guns, has changed into a battleground state, and demographics say will change into a blue state. Georgia is the next biggest one, and it's gone from a I vote with my guns and my pickup trucks too. To oh yeah, it is now a metropolitan center where it is a blue state. I think demographic like the only way that red can win in like 8 years from now without major platform shifts is by winning electorally, but not by popularly. And even then, that's my prediction. I think more elections will be electoral one rather than popular vote one. It's my long-winded prediction.
Yeah. And speaking of Texas, something that's interesting about that is that Texas is becoming green energy capital of the world. And that's because they have lots of sun, lots of wind, and before renewables were efficient, and I suppose before fossil fuels were efficient because you need to transport them. In that in between when we use fossil fuels, the world energy market was pretty consistent across the world. Energy, the cost of energy was the same in Vietnam, in China, in Europe as it was.
Everywhere except Iceland, right? Like Iceland just gets free electricity. Everyone else
Yeah,
lives in their
Greenland's
own.
uniform. But generally, I'm speaking generally
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that there was like a world energy market for renewables. It's not a world energy market. It's a very localized, geographically based energy market. And Texas
Yeah.
is perfectly suited to become the place where things get made because the energy input is so cheap there because the renewables just work so well there. So what that means is that energy intensive things will want to locate in Texas. Sort of divide manufacturing into things that are labor intensive, energy intensive, or capital intensive, like technology intensive, like you need highly skilled workers for it or whatever. So each of those things will locate where the thing that they need most is cheapest, probably. So energy intensive things are going to probably locate in Texas now. And so there's probably going to be a manufacturing boom there. And this is what's been happening a lot. The thing that people usually think of the economy and the president being intertwined, but really it's not. These things just happen regardless of who's president, and people put a lot too much weight in it. It was going to happen no matter who is president, and it will happen even if the president is completely against it happening.
Ultimately, America is a collection of states, and the governor and the internal state policies are always going to be more important than business because they're the most localized version of it, right? The president doesn't decide energy policy in Texas because that's not one of his competencies. The president doesn't even like have a say in policy for the most part. No, like he just gets to veto or not veto things, and then he gets to have discussions about what he likes. But I agree that that's not relevant to any particular state. I
Yeah,
think.
I don't even think the president matters really.
I
So this
I would love if Americans woke up tomorrow and thought that. Like, well, it doesn't ultimate. Like it should just be a figurehead. It's their equivalent of the Queen of or the Queen for you. Like that's all that's the president should be like the representative for foreign deals and issues, and also the nuclear weapons. Because sure, okay, but otherwise, like he doesn't do a lot, or they do not do a lot, and that should be seen as the ideal.
you have your cities, your municipal governments, your county governments, your states with your governors, and you have your Congress people with your senates and House of Representatives, and they are the people who really do the actual legislative hard work. What the president does is he's an executive. So he appoints people who are in charge of the bureaucracy. So that's something a
Uh-huh.
president does. He gets to appoint the people who are heads of the bureaucracy. But the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy, which is another one of those quotes from a certain video game.
One of my favorite quotes is there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. There's no government department that gets to be like, oh, we did our job. We wrapped it up. We are done now. Mission complete, boys. We're over. No one wants to be like, hey, I'm gonna
Yeah,
make me and all my power redundant. I'm just
see,
gonna wipe
yeah,
us
you,
out.
you basically you have to spend a lot of time justifying your own existence when you rely on funding from the government. So what ends up happening is they say we need more money to do the things that we need to do to justify our own existence.
I mean, it makes sense. Like everyone can understand on their own individual level. If you realized that your job was redundant, you wouldn't go straight to your employer and be like, "Hey, you can stop paying me right now because job is done." You're gonna be like, "Hey, I'm gonna start making tasks myself. I'm gonna start making myself indispensable. I'm just gonna start justifying the hell out of why I exist." Anyway, so I've been living in America for the last couple of months. Have you ever spent time here?
Briefly for some vacationing with my family when I was a kid.
How did the freedom taste?
What I actually did was I recorded things I noticed about the differences in like a thing, but then I lost it, so I don't know I don't know what notes I made, but I did make notes.
It
So
was that different from Canada, huh?
it was not that different from Canada. We say it's different, but it's not that different.
Yeah, I
I
always feel like Toronto could just be a major US city.
Toronto has pretensions of being the New York of Canada, but really it's just a worse version of Chicago.
I've never heard someone describe that so perfectly. But that makes, yeah, yeah. Quote of the podcast right there. I'm gonna have to work hard to top that. Okay, so
True.
you've been to America before, but only for vacation. You tried to compare, but mostly it's the same. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
when I went there, I was to the traditional Canadian smug, oh, we're not like America at all phase. So I made a lot more of the differences when I was trying to record them than there actually were. It's pretty much the same thing. There's more outdoor advertising. That's pretty much it.
So much outdoor advertising. I'll admit I'm in a very specific area of America. I can just say I'm in Nevada. I'm in that one big city that everyone knows in Nevada because the rest of the state has basically nothing. And so it's interesting that like layer cake of government because America's the country that claims to hate government the most, but also I don't know anywhere else where you exist under four layers at any given point in time. But I am gifted in that I only live under a county because I live in a non-place. I live in Paradise, Nevada. So I've got like, but even just living under a county, it's like, oh yeah, so there's a county sales tax of like 8%. Also, there's county police that roam the place at all times. It's like, okay, and then there's state police that are everywhere, and then there's like all the federal stuff, and it's like, man, even here, I notice how many layers down that goes. But the anyway, so because to go to pull up a map, Nevada is a swing state, is it not?
Usually, although I think it's moving. I think it's moving in more into a certain direction as other states are becoming swing states like that used to be as and other states that used to be swing states are moving in the other direction and new states are becoming swing states. So the dichotomy that was created in the year 2000 when we had everyone was staring at the maps for so long because Florida bungled up their election as usual.
Uh-huh.
Everyone ended up staring at the maps for so long that the colors solidified during that election. That's
Fun
why
facts.
they America reversed the color scheme that the rest of the world uses.
I mean, it's pretty basic. Red is the color of, workers' movements, let's put it politely, and blue is for some reason the color of conservatives. I don't understand the logic, but it's pretty worldwide, with the exception of America. Why is blue conservative actually? Can't find anything on it. I can just see because the conservatives in the UK are blue. But that's not
The
useful.
Tories. I like that name. I like Tory. It sounds like it sounds fun.
Do
Nope. No
you call
party
them
like a
Tories
conservative party.
do you use the word Tories to describe Canadian conservatives, or is it just British conservatives?
We sometimes use Tories. There was an Ontario Conservative Party guy who's now mayor of Toronto, I think, called John Tory. So that was a fun period of time. I actually thought people were not saying his name and just calling him after the party for some reason. So he's perfectly named for his position. It's a thing that the media will sometimes do as like a offhand thing, like oh it's like a colloquialism, sort of like a
Do you
archaic colloquialism, like when you use an archaic term as a fun thing. That's the sort of thing.
uh do you think we both have some severe form of ADD where we don't stay on any topic, and even when we reverse onto a topic, we end up
I have
six topics removed?
I do have ADD, so
Ah, what's my excuse, man? Maybe I should be the one steering the course, like trying to keep us. Like, if you go like too many degrees off topic, I'm gonna be like, no. Tell me about swing states. Why are they called that? What makes them swingy? That's my new
it's
goal on this podcast. I'm gonna keep you reined in.
There's certain blocks in the country that across the country will vote in a certain way. Like, for instance, there is industrial workers will vote a certain way. And the groups that are in a state are not the same in each state. So when the groups are in balance with each other, you'll have certain groups which are likely to switch, certain groups that are likely to stay on the same party. And if there's a certain enough balance between the two ends of that, and there's a lot of people in one of those groups that changes, like industrial workers for Ohio, then there's a very high likelihood of them switching.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why you have a swing state in Ohio.
Ohio is
And
no longer a swing state, I don't think.
it's actually,
It's
yeah,
switched over
and
to deep red, by the
yeah,
way.
and that's because the industrial workers have firmly moved into a different camp than they used to be.
It's super interesting to see in like one election
Yeah,
cycle how fast.
yeah, in one election cycle, they were swing, and it was because those swing voters swinged a certain way that a certain president won. That, sorry about that. I had to speak French to some person.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want it to be known you speak French on the phone. I am disappointed. You should do what every true Englishman does and go, sorry, I am speaking English clearly. I hope you can understand,
Hey, hey, hey! I
Mr.
took
French
13 years of French immersion. I'm going to use it.
I took 3 years of no, wait, I'm reining you in. So Ohio is it used to be a swing state, but because it moved so firmly in one direction, it no longer is a swing state.
The swingy things are now firmly in one direction. It's now the large block in the state is doing that. And other states, there's Texas in becoming a swing state. It's because they're going to have blocks of rural voters who vote a certain way. But there's also Austin, which is becoming a tech capital because San Francisco is terrible now for everything because I don't know what they're doing wrong there. They're like, it's everything switched up together. They ended up pricing out every single other type of person.
I wonder what San Francisco is doing wrong. Wow, this is a very hard one to work out. I wish someone could tell me what's going wrong with San Francisco. Oh, it sure is hard to work out. My girlfriend's from San Francisco, so I spent a lot of time there earlier this year.
It's just like they don't want
It's
to build anything.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's the deepest blue part of the country, I think, right? So the deepest left, let's call it.
Actually, I have a certain theory about red versus blue cities. Cities which don't have the ability to expand because they have natural barriers tend to be bluer, whereas cities which can expand over large stretches,
because they start to make suburb voters, right?
yeah, they tend to
Suburb voters
be more
are red
sources of red voters. So San Francisco, so restricted,
on
very
three
deep blue,
sides.
very deep blue. New York Island, restricted.
Well, the thing is, Manhattan is restricted in blue, but because New York covers the Staten Island to the south
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
the Bronx to the
But
north, the two boroughs that can expand are a source of red voters.
well, suburbs tend to be swing voters more so than particular red voters. It's the rural areas that are red. But you can have rural areas with fairly decently large populations when you have space. New Jersey is essentially just like one big suburb. It's like the suburbs of
Yes.
Philadelphia and New York, but it also has the urban areas. So it doesn't have any rural areas. So therefore it's blue because of its
I
urban.
don't want to contradict you, but as someone who spent a lot of time in New Jersey, it's even though they have like a couple of urban centers, the whole state is like just semi-rural. Like you're always close to a city, but very few people live in the cities. They all live in some weird country road, where they get well water and like it's the most. It's I think it's the most densely populated state. Maybe it's like it's a very bizarre. It's all
Yes,
suburbia.
but
They're all just
okay, but the thing is land values. Land values is what is the thing. Since all the space is occupied, there's no space to do anything. So the land value is high in the blue areas, and when land value is low and people spread out because it's low, then you get more red areas. So Texas was very spread out before, so it was very red. But Austin is near some hills, so it's kind of more bluish and it's more restricted. And as the state urbanizes, it also starts to run up to barriers.
Can I interject and do the ADD thing and say, on the subject of Texas being so big, like just to help people understand, because when you look at a map, it doesn't really get in there. There is a single ranch in Texas. It's called King Ranch. Wow, there's a map on screen, interactive podcast. But there is a single ranch in Texas bigger than the state of Rhode Island. A ranch where that one person owns in Texas is the same as a state in the Northeast with a population of over 1 million people. That is the difference in land value and land size
Yeah,
between Texas and a deep blue state like Rhode Island.
yeah. The
That's the
U.S.
level.
the U.S.'s the Canada's population distribution is essentially trying to hug the United States, but the U.S.'s population distribution is this. You can almost see like a line halfway through the country where one half is decently densely populated, another half has like almost nobody in it until you get to California, and in between there's like five or so, I think, mountain passes. And so that's essentially like the strategic area of the United States is those areas. If you were to try and attack the United States, you would want to attempt to knock out those areas because then you could split it down the
Separate it.
middle fairly easily by just taking out those five areas. But since it has multiple of those areas, it's not as bad as Canada's situation where I think we have like two of them rather than
Hmm.
five.
I mean, and there's also just one road that one bridge you take out, and Canada is two countries. One bridge and you're gone.
Yes.
All it takes.
Which
One.
is why our railroad companies have operate railroads in the United States. It's faster, it's straighter, it's you can actually build there rather than have to go through endless paths of post glacier mosquito infested lakes everywhere.
So I don't know if you know this, but the Hoover Dam, there's a bunch of like famous US like infrastructure pieces, but they're very scared of a terror attack there. So like if you want to go anywhere near the Hoover Dam, you get security searched. Is there a like similar thing for that one bridge in Canada? Like is Canada actually scared that someone's going to target that bridge?
I have never heard of anything related to that.
Let's take a road trip
I don't even know what bridge
across
you're talking
Canada.
about, honestly.
Oh, you know there's one bridge connecting Canada, right? The one on the Trans Canada Highway.
Yes.
So I reckon we need to drive across it and see like if we wanted to be terrorists. Now we're both on a watch list. I'm sorry, but if we wanted to be terrorists, we should see how easy it is to take out.
Okay, we can do our geography for blind road trip across Canada.
And because it's geography for the blind, we should both wear blindfolds as we're on these. Cover our whole face besides our eyes. I guess including our eyes. Just wear masks, nice veils.
Yes,
Drive across Canada.
yes. And then we have to figure out we could have an autonomous vehicle, so we can be blind while doing it.
No, no, no. We should just see how far can we go with no eyes. Like, how far across Canada can we make it? Because
I
like,
think we
it's
would.
got
I
to be
think
pretty
we would
straight.
immediately drive our car into St. John's Atlantic Ocean.
I think this is a great idea that can only go well. Okay, stay on track though. I like your theory that land value, no, it's not even land, but like constriction of land equals blueness. But the thing I've always tried to struggle with is like, why is it that when people get close together, they go left or blue?
Well, it's
And
because
why is
government
it when people
services are easier to do when you have people close to each other. Where you're far from each other, there's no government services. So what is the government even doing for you? Nothing, not much. So you
That's true.
have people in rural areas. It's also
It's because we make taxes the same regardless of how many services you get. Like if you live out in the middle of nowhere and you get nothing, you still pay the same 39% or whatever it is in America than if you live in the middle of a city and you get access to all the benefits of living in America. I've always thought that's a bit of almost a hypocrisy. Like something seems off there
yeah.
about how we do that.
The other reason is that inequality is more pronounced in urban areas because you have ultra rich people and you have poor people who are richer than rural people, but relatively there's much more inequality, even though the poor people are richer in their urban area.
Relative income inequality is the real decider in all the problems because no one cares about someone hypothetically wealthy living on the other side of the country. But when you walk past their house every day, that will start to grate you and that
Yeah.
starts to cause the problems.
Yes. And so in rural areas, there's not much inequality, but there's also not very much opportunity because there's very low investment. And in urban areas, there's actually too much investment. And this investment drives up property prices, like in San Francisco, where people just they have so much capital lying around, they just bid up the price of everything, and nobody can who lives there can actually afford to live there anymore because those tech industries is just going into the real estate and driving it up. So there's too much investment essentially in the urban areas, and that's causing problem because it's not going into productive things, it's going into real estate. And it's not even like that real estate is increasing the amount of real estate, it's just bidding up the price. But
Uh-huh.
in rural areas, there's lack of investment is the problem. The concept of a job creator in an urban area, when there's so many jobs around, it's just that the jobs don't pay you enough to live in that area. That is the problem. In the rural areas, there's not enough jobs. So the rhetoric of not wanting to tax job creators actually kind of makes sense in a rural area because you need that investment. You need to encourage investment because nobody wants to invest there. So you need to pull out all of the tax and legal incentives to get investment. So the red blue divide in the United States is logical based on their geographies.
It
So
comes down to geography. Yeah.
yeah.
We
So
made it. We made it happen. We
so
got here.
my one advice to Americans is be cognizant of the geographic differences between your country because it's quite extensive and you should try and understand what the other side is coming from and their issues that they're having. They can be very different from each other, which is why
Boo! The other side is wrong, and they just hate people like us, the good people, us. Asterix. The my side, the one I want to vote for, they are good objectively. They have never done a thing wrong. And the other side, they stomp on puppies, and then they tax you on that puppy they just stomped, and they use it to kill children. That's how that works. Sorry, none of this. Let's think about how other people in different situations have different opinions based on their upbringing and their geography. No,
well
it's that they're morally repugnant.
well um well there's the other thing that tends to happen, which is it's a curious thing, is that religiosity tends to be correlated with ruralness in the developed countries, and at least
We can prove this really, 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 really easily. So the electoral map's probably on screen now. One of the deepest red states is Utah, which has a huge urban center, but even that huge urban center is red because Utah is the Mormon state,
yeah.
and because they're very religious.
Actually, something that's interesting is that evolution hates atheists.
It's true. It
Yeah,
is sadly true.
because people who are not religious, they just don't want to have kids, and so religious people tend to have more kids. So eventually, if you follow the trends, which trends don't tend the trends don't really last that long, but if you do follow the trends, eventually. The entire western part of the United States will be Mormon, and the entire eastern part of the United States will be Amish.
Yep, that is. I mean, in reality, because there's a lot of immigrant, like the other one is like immigrant population groups are
Yes, the
very,
there's some Catholic immigration groups
yeah.
which are coming
Is
up from the south.
it South and Central America? Yeah,
So
like
eventually in the Great Amish Mormon War, the Catholics will have to make a decision on who to support.
the Catholics will be the swing deciders, perhaps. They could
Yeah,
the side they pick will determine the outcome of that war, because ultimately one of the wackiest things about electoral like strategy in any country, it's more pronounced in America, but appealing to the people who most agree with you is the worst idea. You want to appeal to the people who are the least agreeing with you, but most likely to switch or from their other person. You want to you want to get people to agree with you 51%, so that
yeah,
they just slightly prefer you to the alternative.
yeah. That's actually why like both Canada and the United States had that issue in their last election, where the side of the popular vote didn't win the election. It's because they got tons of votes in states that really like them, but they forgot the states that were on the fence.
Yeah, that's what I think. I guess like you can pick whoever you want in a primary and hope they do what you want, but ultimately you need to pick. You need to look at the 10 states or so that are currently deciding an election and be like, who is most likely to bring them over to me? There's almost like within each party, there's like a you can be selfish and pick the person who you like the most, but you know it won't appeal to the 5 or 10 swing states of the world. Or you can pick the person who is most likely to win because they can win those swing states. Is there a particular candidate that comes to mind when you say that? When I say that?
I have no idea what you are talking about, Toy Cat. I have there is no way we would ever be able to understand what you're trying to get at in this situation.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm saying at all. You're right. But yes, I live in what used to be a swing state. It's still technically like it's considered like one of the we don't know for sure. Like, without even polling, I bet they send one person out to California. They're like, okay, did you vote? Did you vote for the party that you did last time? Okay, California's this way. Whereas like, it takes a longer time to get Nevada sorted. But so it's interesting because the amount of ads I see, like I love being in America for campaign season because it is nuts the amount just everywhere. Every screen is either go out and vote or it's people in this sounds like I'm making this up. This sounds like I'm being mean. This is actually what happened. People with pickup trucks driving down Las Vegas Boulevard with giant like Trump for President 2020 flags. Like that is I've seen that multiple times. It is a concerted effort uh, to get the vote out for him there. But it's like I'm not used to political campaigning like this in my country. Do you see it where you are in Canada, like
No,
this level of spending?
no, we don't. We don't have that. So I suppose that that's a thing that the United States has that's different than Canada. But
So much money. It's in the billions. It's not even like low billions. It's like double-digit billions that each candidate will spend.
yeah, there's basically we seem to getting across that the idea that the difference between Canada and the United States is there's a lot more advertising in the United States.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I guess like more commercialization. You're more allowed to accept that you want to make money here, is how I would broadly put that. And therefore, like things that you would call selling out in maybe a Canada or the UK is just like, what's it called? Get the bag. Yeah.
Yeah. Advertising in Canada is usually based around the smug "we're not like America." There's several ads like that where it's like I hate all of them, all of those ads that are like that. But it's basically like, "Oh, we're not America and buy our product because we're not America, so you should buy this product." So I feel like in a way that the American way of doing it, where it's just
Buy
it's
our product because it's cheaper and or better.
yeah, that's the I feel that's a more healthy advertising because it's in because you can tell you're being advertised to. It's not an underhanded attempt to conceal the advertising.
Yeah, that's
Which
that's how I feel about it too. It's very honest. It's just like, hey, we're buying this ad because we know it informs you about
which
our
it, which
product and makes some of you buy it.
which happens to be my opinion on a certain restaurant chain.
Ooh, which one? Wait. Oh, there, I know. Wait, I know which one. Wait. Oh, you mean the one that has an upside down W for their logo?
That's the one.
Man, I sure do love Wook Donalds.
Yes. So, how that's related to my opinion is that I think that they provide a certain service, that they have a standardized food that you can get quickly and for a cheap price. And they're good at doing that. I do not have issues with them being good at doing that because that's one of the benefits of capitalism is that if you're good at doing something, you can make money off of it, which is a benefit. What I don't like is I have to describe it as to be corporate. It feels dishonest, and the way advertising to make a corporate brand, which is similar to where Canada sort of acts like a corporate brand more so than a country. So I don't like corporate brands, whereas I like that you can make money off supplying things that people want. But I wish that
Yes.
there was not brands involved in that.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's a problem when we have brands that try to convince you they're just like you and that other brands are bad because they're not just like you. It's like the key number one thing should be the product. You can make a part of that product or things that you might associate with brands. Like if McDonald's goes eco-friendly of their packaging, they move from paper wrapping to boxes. I don't know if that is more eco-friendly actually, but like, that is a improvement. And therefore, if you are someone who likes boxes over paper, McDonald's is for you. I think they can be like, oh yeah, we don't agree with X thing in our beef because that's what people don't want. I think you can differentiate the product to match the people. But when you try to differentiate the brand to match the people, like, oh look, we've made our McDonald's logo. Um, I don't want to use this example, but it's the first one that comes to mind. We're going to make the McDonald's logo like a rainbow because that's us, and it's like, but that's what are you really you're really just pandering to a particular demographic because they'll buy your burgers. You're not doing it because you actually care about them. You're doing it because it will help increase the number of sales on, and that's the most disingenuous way to make any point. You're like, when you're not saying it because you want to say it, you're saying it because it's popular. I don't like that. But I agree. The thing that fast food gets right that no other place. So many people are snobby against this, and like before this, it wasn't a great widely accepted thing. But the idea of getting the same thing no matter where you are at this point in the world is so valuable. The consistency is very underrated when it comes to food because sometimes you want food to be an adventure, to be an experience. I love trying new food, but sometimes you just want something you know will be good, and that is impossible. That in an age where there's no chains, that is impossible. And I love that McDonald's cuts through that. That's almost like a brand message they can get through to you, like McDonald's. It's always there for you. You might not even like it that much, but even if it's just okay, being able to get okay food anywhere in the world at this point is an intense phenomenon.
It's so standardized that they even use the cost of it
Oh,
as
Big
an
Mac.
economic principle. The cost of the Big Mac
Yeah,
for
the
the
Big
Big
Mac
Mac
index.
index.
It's like the tiniest bit flawed, but it's the best way to prove like, oh yeah, supply chains in different countries are different. How does this affect it? I have been to Switzerland. Would you like me to break your heart and tell you the price of a burger meal there?
Go ahead.
They're very, very, very expensive because they're very, very wealthy. So, what would you say the cheapest burger, like just a hamburger, not a real burger, just like the cheapest thing on the menu? What would you say that costs in Canadian rubles?
20 Swiss francs. I don't know. I just guessed a
Oh,
random number.
oh yeah, you did the thing where like if someone's like, oh, guess how much I bought these jeans for? Guess what a good deal I got? And you're like 60p, and they're like, oh, it was actually $16. Now you make me feel bad. If you overestimate too much, now my actual number looks bad. You got to re-guess. I'm
Okay,
gonna pretend I didn't hear
I'm
that.
gonna say 10 Canadian rupees.
What is that? Sorry, but what does the burger cost there in Canadian rupees?
I don't know, because I don't go.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna find out, and then I'm gonna compare for you. But you never go to McDonald's?
No, I don't. I
What?
don't
I know.
because don't I don't eat at restaurants.
Ooh. Wait, where do you eat? At home?
Yeah, I make my own food. It's cheaper.
What? Tell me what you ate for breakfast. This is a key topic for me.
I have bread and peanut butter for breakfast.
Sad breakfast.
I had bread and peanut butter for breakfast.
Yeah,
That's a
but it's a
standard
sad breakfast.
that's a standard breakfast.
I significantly disagree. I I think something's gone wrong over there. Is this a cry for help? Is this podcast your way of
What what
saying
what
you need someone to
what
come help you?
what's
Is
wrong
that
with
what
bread
this
and
is?
peanut butter for breakfast? It's the
We're
best
gonna have to
breakfast.
we're gonna have to. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were going through this stuff. Like, should we stop right now and give you a counseling session? Is that what you need?
What's wrong with bread and peanut butter? It's the
It's just
best.
bread and that's it's if I just said, oh yeah, for breakfast I had jam and a croissant. Actually, croissant's fancy. You know, bread and peanut butter, sad breakfast. But so at McDonald's in Canada, I found out in this conversation, a hamburger costs $1.69 in Canadian rubles, and a double hamburger is $1.99. A single hamburger in Switzerland was 3 Swiss francs, which to convert to your lowly currency is 4.36 Canadian dollars. In other words, just under three times the price. And
Wait,
that is
4.36. That doesn't seem that much for.
three times as lot, three times the price. Because a Big Mac would be like 12 or 13 Swiss francs or something. Like everything
Oh,
was
okay.
more than.
I thought we were talking about Big Mac because we were talking about Big Mac
Oh
index.
no, yeah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the Big Mac is the one for the index, but like the fact that they're cheapest burger, like the poor person's burger, just to clarify, they're tasty. I eat them, but they're a poor man's burger. Is that expensive? And then like anyway, it's expensive to eat McDonald's. Like what you might eat at a restaurant where you're at is like the McDonald's price. Kind of wacky. Anyway, you don't eat out at restaurants. This is important to dive into.
What?
When was the last time you ate out? I know there's a pandemic going on or something, but what was the last time you ate out?
So I don't remember because of the situation.
It's crazy because where I'm in Las Vegas, although the situation very much exists, it also doesn't exist in people's minds, which means it doesn't exist. 'Cause that's how this works apparently. So the last time I ate out was about 8 hours ago, and then before that it was a day. So you're missing out. I had some very mediocre Italian pasta. It was great. Buca de Beppo. Shout outs. Shout outs for mediocre all you can eat pasta.
That's the best kind of pasta.
Have you ever had pasta at a restaurant that wasn't mediocre?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what mediocre or good. I don't know. I don't understand the difference.
Oh, really? Is all pasta mediocre to you, or is all pasta so good that you can't comprehend mediocre pasta?
It's more the that second one.
Oh, oh man, I wish I was you. I wish I was you. Anyway, speaking of mediocre, has there been a presidential candidate in like the last 50 years that you didn't think was okay at best?
50 years. That would be 1970.
Yeah, Lyndon Johnson, I think, would be the first presidential candidate. They were like, what, Barry Goldwater?
No, 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 no. The Nixon was firmly the president in 1970.
Oh, I do not know my. Wait, is that correct? Didn't.
Like he became president in 1968, so he got to take credit for the moon landing.
Oh, really? He was president during the moon
Yeah,
landing.
like he ran against Kennedy in the 1960 election.
And it came back 8 years.
Kennedy was got to say the speeches. Lyndon Johnson got to be president while everything was developing, and then 8 years later, Nixon swoops on in from his main rival not existing anymore, and he got to take credit for it.
Wow, it's crazy. Nixon ran against Ronald Reagan in the primaries. Who I can't imagine like they had like they had choices in that election about who to elect, and they're like, oh, the guy who already lost as a presidential candidate 8 years ago, let's try him again. Like imagine like grabbing Mitt Romney. Oh Jesus,
They
that's a
did
bad
do that.
example.
They did
Oh,
exactly that. So the runner up in 2000 for the Republicans was McCain, and so after Bush was done, McCain ran and he lost again, and the runner up to McCain was Romney, and so Romney won, and then the cycle broke because of
a
the
certain
outsider,
man of a certain color that's between red and yellow.
the first orange president.
I wasn't gonna say it, but I guess you can. But like at least those were primary candidates. They'd never been tested with the general public fully. But
Actually,
like
Trump
imagine
ran
running
for
Al Gore
president
again
before
in
that.
2008.
Trump ran
Sorry.
for president before that as a primary candidate for the Reform Party, for which was Ross Perot's party, and that's why the Simpsons had their Trump joke.
But he didn't really run, right? Like,
No, he ran,
oh wow, you're right, actually. Oh,
and he pretty much said the same things in his primary run as he did all those years later.
that's crazy. Huh, yeah, he was on the ballot in 2 states, looks like. So that's fun. Man, that's interesting. Like I'm trying to say like a losing candidate of the actual election. Like imagine Al Gore running in 2008. Imagine, you know, McCain running in 2016. Like someone lost, the electorate says, "Nah, we don't want him as president." And then the party's like, "But what if this time?" But that actually
Well,
happened. Like
I
that's
mean, it
never
helps
happened
when you
again.
ran. It helps when the person you lost to died.
That's tr You figure that wouldn't help because like you're gonna remember him so unfondly by comparison. We would remember even that like you know the orange president would be much more fondly remembered if he died in office than if he gets to live out the rest of his life outside of office. Like being a martyr makes you more fondly remembered because you died before. You know, the good stuff gets attached to dead people, but not the bad stuff, generally speaking. And so you'd be thinking about like, oh yeah, I remember the 1960 election. Nixon ran then, and oh yeah, he ran about against that really nice guy. I love that JFK guy. I'm going to name an airport after him. We wouldn't? I don't think we'll ever try that again. With like the maybeest exception being like Mitt Romney, and even then, not even likely. That's just a maybe. To go back onto the main thread here, you haven't liked a presidential candidate a lot in the last 50 years, I'm guessing.
So wait, a presidential candidate or a president who won?
Let's say a president. Actually, no, let's go with president who won because it proves my point better.
Because I don't think anyone really remembers all the presidential candidates all the way back that far.
Yeah, yeah. Like even the
Like
2004 guy, no one knows his name, right?
like Dukakis and Mondale
Oh, Mondale was a great presidential candidate.
and McGovern. Best one of those other names that are where you end up being very suitable for what you're named for. But then he ended up losing, so I guess he wasn't suitable.
I love the idea of McGovern. Such a terrible name.
John
End of
Kerry is
day.
2004.
See the fact that it took you that long, right? That was 16 years. That was 16 years ago. That was a that was recent, very recent history. He came pretty close to winning, but because he didn't win, the amount you know him versus the amount you know George W. or HW, I don't know his name, the Bush guy, the fact that you know him so much more shows the power of winning versus the power of losing. But the point is that I think to win an election, you almost want to be just tolerable to as many people as possible. Versus if there is a candidate that is loved by a particular group, maybe this is just the law of how
You
humans
need
like
to be
things, but
Alexander the merely adequate.
well, I think monarchy's favored like super passionate people because you needed to rally. Like back when we went by whoever has the most guns or the most swords wins, you wanted to rally around your 20% who loved you, and then you could control the other 80%. But a democracy encourages a system where you just need enough people to not vote against you to win. And because of that, you just want to be the most tolerable candidate. Like that's what we're ultimately heading towards. More and more tolerable people,
Which
right?
can be a good thing or a bad thing, as most things are.
I mean, put it in 2020 terms, because you know we got to talk about the current election. I would argue that there are more people who vehemently, like, vehemently are in love with Trump than are in love with the other one. But I think that's not the important factor. And I think even though yeah, you can totally argue you could totally take it from both sides. It's at least a balancing factor. Because it means that you'll never hate it too much. You can never despise what's happening right now too much. Because the more you despise something, the more you're likely to vote. Which is also sad, actually, now that I think about it.
Yes. So in the United States has first past the post, as does Canada, as does UK, I think, right?
The UK as a whole does, but different parts of the UK don't.
So that tends to encourage voting against somebody rather than voting for them, so you can mash up all your votes together. But somehow Canada doesn't do that. Canada and Utah somehow don't have two-party systems, even though the math would make it so that you would be encouraged to do that, which is interesting.
UK has like a eight-party system if you count
Well,
Northern
it's
Ireland.
because but that's more of a regional thing than
That's
you,
true.
you have to count the nationwide parties. Because like if you counted
Okay.
the Bloc Québécois, we would have
Like, I
party
mean, the fact
system.
that America doesn't have a regional party says something interesting, right? Like, they have 50 such unique states. I mean, Hawaii and Alaska are so far removed from the issues in the other 48, but yet they still, there's no, the closest thing you get is I think Alaska once had a governor who was from the Alaska Independence Party or something dumb. Like, but you rarely see regional blocks. There's no Minnesota Midwest Power Party, or there's no, like Texas should secede party. Those groups always coalesce into the big two, unlike in Canada and the UK.
Yeah, yeah. Each of our provinces has a different political
Maybe.
setup. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, Quebec, we have the left wing party for people who want to stay in Canada. We have the left wing party for people who want to leave Canada. And then they're like an uber left wing party that. See, the uber left and Quebec separatism is a thing that is very strange to me because I went to a socialist meeting at my university and they simultaneously advocated for Quebec to become its own country while also advocating that the entire country should be turned over to the First Nations. And I didn't quite understand how that made any sense because they seem kind of mutually contradictory. They also said everything would be done democratically, even though the First Nations are not a majority of the population, and that we would use our natural resources to help the revolution abroad, even though we were somehow supposed to also be democratic, meaning we would probably vote to use it for ourselves. So they're all very contradictory things. So they're not exactly within the secession makeup. And then on the right wing party, there's one right wing party where secession, no secession, everyone just decided that the entire mess of the left needs to be counter of a single right wing party. So the Coalition pour l'avenir québécois is the single right wing party as a coalition of separatists and federalists. Ontario, the party system actually follows the federal one, as there's conservatives, liberals, and NDP. Elsewhere, the system is different, and I don't know that well because I only know what Ontario and Quebec because I'm a Laurentian elitist like
I
that.
know that British Columbia is just the two left groups fighting. I know that Alberta is like deep blue, but then it's the super far left. That there's different two party like in the leads in each province.
Oh
So
yes,
the whole like vote for the other guy can't work on a nationwide level because it doesn't make sense to vote for that party in
okay,
your province.
yeah, Alberta's like that because they really hate the liberals. Like more so than it's not that they're anti-left wing, it's that they just really hate the liberals. So they're more willing to vote for the left wing party than the center party. And the reason is because the liberals, who are the Federalist Party in Quebec, they sort of have the same ideology on the national level. So our prime minister's father did, the senior prime minister, he nationalized the oil industry, which they really didn't like. They wanted it to be used for Albertan purposes rather than the Liberals' project to make the country more country and stick it together.
We didn't talk
Anyway,
about the American election too much. I think
yeah.
that's good.
So theoretical capitalism. The reason I named it that was because there's a person who complained about that we talked about communism too much. They complained us being too political. But I think that if you don't talk about particular elections or particular candidates, but you talk about wide-ranging political concepts.
It's okay to talk about politics outside of specific elections because the more localized you get, the less you're really talking about an issue, and the more you're just trying to say, vote for my guy. And vote for my guy isn't useful to anyone because anyone who's seen anything ever already knows some amount about both people. And they've probably even made up their minds, and you're not going to sway them, and you shouldn't even really. You can try, but it's not going to be too useful. If you talk about the broader issues, you can help people in the future. Like, I don't care who you vote for this election, honestly. But, what about the broader issues about federalization? What about the broader issues about how democracy is slowly making candidates who are just not awful? These are things you can actually. I think these are the long term issues. Whereas on November 3rd, everyone will immediately forget all the things they've been saying to convince each other who to vote for, and then they'll start talking about the next set of things. Or realistically, they just won't talk for 4 years, and I'll start talking about why you should vote for my guy then.
Oh yeah, politics is extremely local and based on geography. So you can't say something and expect it to be applicable everywhere. Each location has its own politics, its own bitter hatreds that are oh so
Yeah,
fun.
because even though they both broadly have the same ideological bent, how that applies will depend on your geography. No matter how many services you want to provide people, if you're in a super rural area, there is just no cost-effective way to do that on a universal level. Whereas in a city, it almost doesn't make sense not to provide certain universal services.
And this creates a divide
Yes, exactly.
because one group of people needs theoretical capitalism to develop, and the other one has too much practical capitalism because it's overdeveloped. And so they vote accordingly. In capitalism in theory is it works because certain things you need an expensive thing right away to be able to produce a thing. And so you collect capital to be able to deploy it all at the same place. And so in doing that, like for instance, with solar panels or to develop renewable energy, it requires a lot of startup capital to get everything set up. But once it's there, it has a very consistent economic return. And so it's almost like a textbook application of capitalism. It's one of those weird things where I don't understand why the right wing doesn't like this more and the left wing is the one that support. It's like one of those things where everyone got mixed up from what they're supposed to support.
I agree. I think the real value, it's like you said, where having opportunity is the important thing. Like, I guess self-chosen opportunity, maybe. And there isn't enough of that in some places, whereas in other places, there's too much, but it's just not viable for them. If you live in a city, you have access to 100 minimum wage jobs, and your minimum wage might be insane. In San Francisco, for instance, it's $15 something an hour. But even that amount an hour, and even being able to get a job like that, isn't enough to make you. That isn't really an opportunity. There's lots of opportunities, but they're not good enough. And that's why people want to improve the opportunities in one place, but they want to create more in another place. But those are very different goals because you can shrink the number of opportunities by making each opportunity better, or you can increase the overall number of opportunities.
I'm not exactly sure if that is a thing that can even work in like if San Francisco, what ends up happening is the revenue from all of us using all these tech things from all over the world pours straight into it. And is it really possible for the increasing opportunities for the people there in San Francisco to be able to catch up with that? They have to essentially compete with that pouring in of money from around the world that of course some of it kind of goes to them but not really. So
Uh-huh.
this uber concentration in this one small geographic area is creating the situation where locally simply improving them doesn't necessarily help them in any way because they cannot keep up with the increase in that super local location.
Really, what you're saying is that the big tech giants should go find a place where they've got hundreds of miles of land on all sides, and then they should start funneling the global money there, like using the money to develop new land rather than overdevelop already overdeveloped land.
Yeah, they've slowly been doing this, like in Austin, etc. They also like Denver, and that's part of the reason why a state you would otherwise think would be red ended up going blue recently.
I've heard the justification for it is it almost sounds like an insult to one team, but if you are college educated, your odds of going to blue it significantly increase. And then if you're college educated in a city, it's like close to a sure thing. Like cities alone don't create blue voters, but although they tend to do more, but city plus college level education. And Colorado is the most educated state in the country. You can fact check me on that one. Um, but you're right
Yes.
that like when you look at a map, you can see the coasts are very, very, very filled with things, and then the rest of America is just a city and then an expanse of nothing, and then it's a city and an expanse of nothing. I've noticed that more than anything here. I live in Las Vegas. Where I am, there's like a big urban conurbation. It's about 20 minutes across, and then there is nothing. I mean, like no house, no like anything for hundreds of miles in every single direction. It is 4 hours. It's 2 hours to the nearest like tens of thousands of population city, and it's like 4 hours to the nearest anything that people would live in. It's wild. The
Yes.
isolation here. It's like this is a
But
perfect place to pour money into. The land is worth nothing. You could
yeah.
build your own city. They should build their own city.
And
Get a
then
Disney World situation going on.
we can yeah, they should build their own city there, and they should, you know what they should do? They should build all sorts of landmarks from around the world. And maybe you could even you could to attract people, you could create some really loose laws around vices like gambling.
And
That's
divorces and drinking and weed. Yeah, those would be that would be interesting. Wait, Nevada fun fact. I'm the one going off topic. Do you know speeding? So like federally, they try to put pressure on the states to make maximum speeds, speed limits. And Nevada held out for like the longest time. And when they finally did put them in, for the longest time, the fine if you were caught going like over 100 miles per hour was $5. That was their way of being like, look, we're told like there is no enforcement, and if they did catch you, it'd be $5. And that was their way of being like, look, we made it illegal. We put up signs and everything. I mean, if you wanted to go faster on the empty desert road, I mean, it's not like we'd stop you, but if you did, we'd totally slap you on the wrist and charge you that $5.
to go back to what we were talking about before with the education and blue voters. Here's the thing: richer people vote red, so that kind of goes against the idea that education makes is what brings wealth to you. So
Because education should bring you more money on an average level. But if it doesn't, or if
and
it
so
doesn't
what you
bring you as
get
much,
is you end up getting a lot of poor educated people, and those are the blue voters.
yeah, or even not even just poor. I think I find the a big combining factor is resentment for people in a similar. It's like we were saying earlier. Like inequality doesn't matter on a national scale or an international scale. It matters on a local scale. If you feel like other people in your same category, other educated, whatever demographic you are, in your city, in your state, when you see them doing better than you despite you going to college, that drives the resentment, which drives the particular voting pattern. Like even if you're making six figures a year, you can feel poor, which is dumb, but it's true. Like there are lots of people earning $250,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck, and feeling like they're, hard done by, feeling like they're barely scraping it. Like,
Those are the type of people where they probably should have been educated about money.
yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't
for
get enough
sure.
education. They should have been educated about the right things, not the wrong things.
I mean, I watched this video about this girl lives in New York City. She's a lawyer, and when she first started, even though she's on a really high six-figure salary, it's like your lifestyle just immediately tries to catch up with your income, and then for the first while, you notice it, but after a while, getting sushi every night and spending $60 on dinner doesn't become a luxury. It becomes just a normal part of your life. Your
Which is
peanut
why
butter
I don't
sandwich.
which is why I don't eat out.
Your sad peanut butter and bread is no longer sad to you. It just seems like breakfast to you. When to the rest of the world, it's a cry for help.
Well, no, it's what I ate when I go before I would go to school as a kid, and then I still eat it today. I don't know why I wouldn't. It's a good
Yeah. And
breakfast. I don't know
to
what
make
what issues does a peanut butter sandwich have for breakfast? It's it's
okay, at least the
it's
sandwich, at least that's something. If I was picturing a single slice of bread with some peanut butter on.
well, actually that's what I had.
There we go. That's that. That's the cry for help. See,
No,
like
but
you,
no,
you
but
gotta,
it's
you gotta.
it's not a single piece. I have multiple pieces. It's just I put the peanut butter on, I spread it, and then I eat it, and then I spread it on another piece, and I eat that, and have it as much as I need for
Wait. So do
breakfast.
you eat before you spread the next slice, or do you spread on like two or three slices and then eat? This changes everything.
I spread it, eat it, spread it, eat it.
This is a cry for help. Everyone, please send some messages letting him know that you would like him to live. I think he's going to need those right now. We can get through this, Matt. We can get through this. We can. No, but I think the reason is like people want their lifestyle to improve as they go on, as they age, maybe as time goes on. People expect that as the pie grows, their feeling of how wealthy they are should also improve. But we're
Okay.
reaching an issue where people don't like, like some when you jump your life straight from eating peanut butter bread to eating sushi every night for $60, you feel it for a bit and then you stop feeling it. Whereas I feel like the important thing is the growth itself, not necessarily the absolute state. And that's why people who are spending all of that money, when those people eating sushi every night can only eat sushi every other night, or once a week, heaven forbid, but it's on the streets of New York or something. That seems like their life has been flipped, turned upside down. Uh, Whereas, your
I can
life
tell
is
you all
seemingly
about
not
that.
being affected by the situation. No one can tell you to stop eating bread and peanut butter.
If you don't let your lifestyle inflate with your income, then what you can do is you can become a capitalist. You can accumulate capital and then you can deploy that capital. And then you
And use
can,
the capital to make even more money to buy more capital.
yeah. And then you can,
And use that money to buy even more capital.
yeah,
And then use that money to buy even more capital.
exactly.
See,
You can be,
the one thing that makes it not an inherently broken system to me is that people die. If humans live forever, we need to entirely upend our economic system, I think. But because people die, like you have a huge advantage if you're born with if you already have money, you have an advantage over someone who doesn't, right? Would you agree?
money lets you buy goods and services. So you have an advantage
Money
over people who
does
can't buy
buy
goods
goods
and
and
services.
services. That we are on the same page. But the interesting thing is that when even if I made $1 billion in my lifetime, the odds of that making it more than like 3 or 4 generations down the line is actually depressingly low. Like people want their families to live on or whatever, and like be cautious. But if you're born wealthy and you're not like if you just see money as a thing that's always been there, you're more likely to spend it. And that's why most family fortunes drain a few generations down the line. And then they have to start from scratch. And then that poor generation, 4 generations now, has to decide for themselves. It's like, and that's why people feel like unfair when they're born. And like, if you go to school, I had a lot of rich-ish people at school, and it's like, man, their life is just better than mine because of what seems like chance. And that's to me what is the ultimate dividing line between one camp, one political group, and the other is that one sees everything as chance and one sees everything as not inflating their lifestyle and capital growth and smart deployment decisions and whatever else. Right?
Yeah. The thing about the capital, what that makes more capital is our economic attempts to revive the economy just kind of chases its tail. There wasn't much because the reason the economy wasn't doing bad was because we literally stopped it.
Yeah.
So we attempted to prop it up without restarting it first, which is kind of like we didn't even restart the heart. We were already trying to give the medicine for whatever without restarting the heart. That's not going to work, obviously. So what ended up happening was the capital just started chasing its tail and all went into like a certain area and a certain specific stocks people thought were gonna do well, and so it just inflated completely, and that actually increases the level of inequality because it went into the tech stocks, and that just increases the level of inequality in San Francisco, where all that money just keeps pouring into those tech giants, and people just keep pouring more money into them because they believe that they're going to grow more and that eventually they'll get their money back. But somehow people just keep pouring money into them, and they haven't given that money back to the people who poured it in yet. And so
Yeah,
it just goes into the San Francisco real estate and makes it unaffordable for anyone over there.
it's really interesting because you're right that they basically just inflated stocks by trying to revive the market before there was even an opportunity, like before you could even go out and actually have it even have a chance of being revived. And because inflating stocks inflates particular stocks, especially inflates tech stocks, and the biggest winner is the Amazon, right? It effectively means that they spent a lot of money to give tens of billions of dollars to the richest man in the world.
Yeah,
He's made over 100 billion in the last year, and that's not a market based earning, is
I
it?
mean,
That's not.
technically, what ended up happening is Amazon's stock got more expensive. It's not
Mhm.
intrinsically more valuable. Well, it is more intrinsically more valuable than it was before, but most of
Yeah,
that,
I don't know.
most of the
Yeah,
growth is because the stock itself is getting more expensive. It's because people think it's worth more now, and then therefore his the paper wealth increased.
Hmm.
So
Which
it's
is
not like he actually has more money, but he does because he could sell it.
leverage it into more money, and yeah,
He can borrow
it's
against
it's
it.
always it's always a complex argument talking about paper wealth because some people are just like, oh, but you can totally sell it, and it's like if you sell something like a stock, you decrease its value as you sell it too, which really
Yeah,
plays into it makes things very hard to talk about on a actual macro level. And the same like if you wanted to buy a Jeff Bezos stake of Amazon, it would increase the value of Amazon as you did it because as you're buying more, it gets more expensive to buy. It's very interesting, like the buy sell economics of stocks and how they basically mean it's impossible to put a pin on how much someone is actually worth. You just have to estimate real good.
because the stocks are what other people think those stocks are worth. Essentially, the people's paper wealth is what other rich people think they're worth.
It's like paintings.
Yeah, except these paintings make things people need. So in this weird paint auction market we have, there's a way that you can sneak into building things people need, and it somehow ends up happening. And we benefit from the rich people picking the right painting if that
Yes.
painting is beneficial to people, but it doesn't need to be beneficial to people, and so it can
Is
also
this
hurt.
a giant conversation about capital allocation having taking place as a analogy about paintings?
Yeah,
I want to go back to your whole like nice round message to end it because I think this is a geography show, geography for the blind. I think understanding how much geography can affect your situation is important and how that affects people's left right balance, etc. I'm going to resist talking about how the same thing happens in the UK and that's why we have 3 or 4 parties. The ultimate thing is you need to, if you are blind, perhaps, to other people's political opinions and why they hold them, and even how their whole economic system works, then you're not going to be able to effectively argue it. Like, I think we both took a lot of contrary positions here for fun. And I think unless you can truly understand what you're against, you can't really be fully for what you like. If you ever, I don't know if this is as prevalent in Canada because you probably aren't as like entrenched, but there are certain regions of the UK where just, oh yeah, why do you vote for who you do? Because like it's socially ostracized to vote for the other people. And I think that's the most counterproductive voting you can do in a democracy. Do you
yeah.
have that in Canada? Have you ever have met someone who's like, oh, one of those people? I would punch them in the face if I met one, or oh, they are literally, Stalin, Hitler, whatever it is.
The first time I ever experienced that was with that new party we had last election. I didn't really have a.
Ooh.
People just, I don't know. Maybe people like the milk cartel. I don't know.
I mean, I want milk to cost $5 a gallon, and if it doesn't, I don't even know if $5 a gallon is a lot. Actually, I don't buy milk by the gallon. I don't know how cheap milk is in the UK.
Actually, no.
That
My
blows
milk
me.
is the milk is it's $6.50 a gallon.
Milk costs me like 50p a litre in the UK. We pay $3 Canadian for our milk gallon. It'd be cheaper actually because you get a discount if you buy that much. So you'd be paying like 2 to 3. Yeah, let's say like $2 Canadian for a gallon here or there. I don't know what milk is in America.
One
I'll
gallon
call you
is
that.
3.8 liters. So
Can we just
at
not admit
50
that gallons are bad?
50 cents is that's about $4 would be your milk, and so I pay $6.50 for milk. So it costs over 50% more.
See, milk is so expensive that Van de Graaff has to eat peanut butter and bread for breakfast. Think about what you're doing, Milk Cartel. Think about it. Okay, so the nice summary. Give me your closing thoughts on the American 2020 presidential election. So what I
MAGA.
think, Mac, you know, I think Macca. That's what they call McDonald's in Australia. I don't know if you do it in Canada too. If not, then that's not funny. But make a Canada. Well, wait, it doesn't work that way. Damn it. The A in MAGA is America. Mukka. Make Canada. Make Mukka. Make Canada cool again. That's what. Wait, make Canada Canada again. Canada needs more maple leafs and more. I don't know what actually is definingly Canadian milk cartels.
Well,
Okay, no, no, wait. Closing thoughts. I
there's
think that
apparently no. You see, there's apparently no core identity. According to our prime minister, there is no core identity, no mainstream. We are a post-national country.
a post-national country. Huh.
Yes,
That's a phrase.
it is a phrase.
I want to start just saying words
I think
like
my personal thinking on why he said this is part of his little intra Quebec beef thing. So what ended up happening was the conservatives, when they were in power last, they made a motion that recognized Quebec as a nation within a united Canada. And so by calling the country post-national, what it does is it sort of retroactively cheapens that, as it says, oh yes, Quebec is its own nation within the United Canada, but we're all our own nation within the United Canada. We're all each our own individual nations within the United Canada or whatever. I don't know what I don't know what
just
it's trying to
just
get
do
at.
the UK thing and say it's a country in a country. There you go. Win.
Like for instance, the senior prime minister, the senior of our prime minister, there was Quebec was making a biculturalism motion, which was saying, oh, there's two cultures in Canada, the French culture and the English culture. Trudeau's government, it adopted bilingualism, but it also said, no, we are a multicultural country. And there's nothing special about that there's the French part of Canada and the English part of Canada because we're all our own cultures with all our own things. But whatever, but we'll speak English and French. Then Quebec tried to get themselves recognized as their own nation within a United Canada. And so then Trudeau had to flank that by saying the post-national thing. So I think it's related to him in his Quebec thing, where he needs to
I
outflank
think
the Quebec separatists.
I think we spoke more about Canada than we did America today. We might have screwed the pooch on this one.
Well, it's in our brand at this point to be off topic.
That's true. And speaking of off topic, how are your videos coming along?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. In the meantime, I've also not been posting videos, so go check out one of those non-existent puppies because I've been in America where I have a terrible microphone, so I just figured why make geography videos if you don't even sound good. Yeah, I'm going back to the UK soon. It's gonna be wacky. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be used to it again. I live in capitalism land right now. I can go outside and like 4 minutes from my door, I can be playing blackjack. Or like even closer, like the convenience store that is a 30-second walk from me has slot machines in it. Like I don't know how to go back to capitalism light. I like theoretical capitalism, is what I'm saying.